Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to definitively break down the realities of choosing your next operating system in 2026. We are cutting right through the marketing hype and, those age-old fanboy debates to look strictly at the facts, the data, and the actual day-to-day experience of using these systems. So let's just dive right into this fundamental question, because here's the absolute truth. There is no single, universally best operating system out there. There just isn't. There's only the tool that best fits your specific needs, your budget, and your personal boundaries. Today, we're going to figure out exactly which one that is for you. To do that, we'll be neutrally judging Windows, macOS, and Linux across 5 distinct battlegrounds. We've got 1, meet the operating systems, 2, software and gaming, 3, creators, coders, and students, 4, security, privacy, and data, and finally, number 5, the final verdict. Okay, section 1, meet the operating systems. Before we even talk about apps or battery life, we've got to establish the foundational differences that make these platforms operate in completely different ways. Now, what's really interesting here is how visually dense and academically complex operating systems can look on paper. It's like a giant puzzle. But don't worry, we're going to break this down into super simple, practical terms. At a core level, these systems literally speak completely different languages when it comes to storing your data. Windows defaults to the NTFS format, Mac uses APFS, and Linux typically relies on ext4. So what does this actually mean for you? Well, they basically can't natively read each other's primary drives. If you want a standard flash drive to effortlessly hop between a Mac, a PC, and a Linux machine, you'll absolutely need to format it to a universal standard like exFAT. And that brings us to the primary hardware trade-off you're making on day one. Windows and Linux offer total hardware freedom. You can grab a budget $400 laptop or custom build some massive glowing gaming rig where you pick every single component yourself. But macOS, it operates in a tightly controlled premium ecosystem. Apple designs the hardware and the software. That gives you incredible optimization, sure, but it completely locks you in. You're buying a non-upgradable machine at Apple's price point, plain and simple. Now, a quick aside on Linux. If you're new to it, don't let it intimidate you. It's not just one OS. It's a family of systems called distributions or distros. Distros like Ubuntu and Linux Mint are intentionally built to be incredibly easy, familiar starting points for folks switching over from Windows. Then you've got pop_OS, optimized for gamers and devs, or Arch Linux for power users who want absolute control over the whole shebang. There really is a flavor for exactly how you want to work. Moving on to Section 2, Software and Gaming Compatibility. Well, let's talk about the heavy-duty stuff. For gamers, Windows remains the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. It natively supports virtually every title out there. Between tools like DirectX 12, incredibly extensive hardware driver support, and strict kernel-level anti-cheat compatibility, Windows is absolutely where you want to be. Now, the crucial point on the other side is that while Mac gaming has undeniably gotten better, it's still a massive compromise. Yes, tools like Crossover do an almost magical job translating Windows code on the fly so you can play older or single-player games on your Mac, but the reality? It still falls completely flat for competitive esports titles or live service games that demand those invasive anti-cheat systems. If you're into competitive online gaming, Windows is, for sure, the safer bet. All right, Section 3, Creators, Coders, and Students. Let's look at some specific workflows. If you're a college student, your major practically dictates your purchase before you even step foot on campus. A Mac is an excellent choice for general studies, writing, and design programs. But if you're heading into engineering, you'll quickly find that industry-standard CAD and solid modeling software are basically Windows first or Windows only. Same goes for niche finance tools and specific lab software. Always check your department's requirements. For coders, this divide is incredibly sharp. Want to build iPhone apps? You absolutely must buy a Mac. No way around it. On the flip side, Windows is an absolute powerhouse for game development and .NET frameworks. Plus, for web developers who love a Unix environment, Windows now packs WSL2, the Windows subsystem for Linux, which lets you run native Linux workflows right inside Windows. It's a real game changer. But we've got to talk about Apple's massive hardware advantage here. 15 to 18 hours. That is the staggering real-world battery life a MacBook Air M3 delivers on a single charge. Thanks to the crazy efficiency of Apple Silicon, Macs just massively outperform comparable Intel-based Windows laptops. For a student or creator who needs all-day mobility without constantly hunting for an outlet, that is a huge selling point. However, If you're a creative professional eyeing Linux for its awesome open-source freedom, you have to accept a pretty harsh reality. Industry standards like Adobe Creative Cloud and native Microsoft Office simply will not run on it. Zero native support. While there are some fantastic open-source alternatives out there, if your job requires seamless collaboration with perfectly formatted Excel sheets or Premiere profiles, Linux is going to introduce a lot of friction into your day. Let's move into Section 4, Security, Privacy, and Data. This is arguably our most critical battleground. When it comes to patching security vulnerabilities, architecture really matters. Apple's strict hardware control means security patches roll out universally and immediately. Windows updates, though, they have to navigate a much messier pipeline. Because Windows runs on thousands of different hardware setups, updates can get delayed by driver conflicts from third-party manufacturers, which can leave brief windows of vulnerability open. And speaking of vulnerabilities, check out this staggering statistic. An alarming 38% of Australian computers were still running Windows 10 after its official support ended. To put that into perspective, that's roughly 8 to 9 million devices operating without regular security patches. It really highlights a massive real-world challenge. An OS is only as secure as the user's ability or willingness to actually keep it updated. And this perfectly illustrates the modern privacy cost of using Windows. According to Microsoft's own documentation, Windows 11 classifies certain data collection as required. Even on the absolute strictest privacy settings for a home user, Microsoft harvests your app usage, error reports, and yes, even your typing patterns as required telemetry. You are essentially trading your behavioral data for the sheer universal compatibility of the platform. No, in stark contrast, Linux distributions collect absolutely zero background data by default, nothing. Plus, it's entirely open source, so independent security researchers can, and do, audit every single line of code to make sure nothing is spying on you. This level of absolute data sovereignty is exactly why the German state of Schleswig-Holstein is literally migrating 30,000 government computers away from Microsoft and over to Linux right now. So where does Mac fall? Kind of in the middle. It's demonstrably better than Windows when it comes to user tracking. You aren't getting ads injected into your operating system, thankfully. But your hardware is permanently tied to the Apple mothership. Researchers have shown that macOS still phones home to Apple servers every time you launch an application. So while you have privacy from third-party advertisers, you're still very much living under Apple's watchful eye. Which brings us to Section 5, the final verdict. We've looked at the workflows, the gaming, the privacy, and the crucial takeaway here is that every single OS is a compromise. Windows offers unmatched compatibility but demands your data. macOS gives you a brilliantly optimized premium experience with insane battery life but demands a premium price for a locked-in ecosystem. And Linux, it offers true freedom and privacy but comes with a steep compatibility curve for mainstream professional software. Ultimately, there is no perfectly secure or flawless operating system. There is only the specific trade-off that makes the absolute most sense for your life, your budget, and your values. So, are you prioritizing a frictionless ecosystem, raw gaming power, or total control over your personal data? The facts are on the table. Which compromise are you going to choose?